Hey man, let me tell you something that sounds completely backward until you see it play out again and again in real life. The more you talk to her, the less she feels for you. Not because you're saying anything wrong, not because you're boring, but because she needs the mystery more than she needs the message. You think she wants connection, she says she wants communication, but deep down, what really drives her wild, what keeps her interested, is the unknown. It's the silence between the texts, the pause in attention, the space where her mind starts to wander, and crave. Women don't fall in love with your words. They fall in love with the feeling of not knowing what you're thinking. It's not logic, it's psychology. And most men fail because they believe that constant communication is romantic. But to her, it's suffocating. Every time you check in, every time you say good morning, every time you tell her what you're doing throughout the day, you're lowering the bar, you're removing the tension, you're deleting the distance that attraction needs to breathe. And it's not about playing games. It's about understanding that women feel more when they have to guess more. She can't fantasize about a man who constantly gives her the full script. She needs a blank space, a cliffhanger, a sense of danger that maybe, just maybe, you could vanish if she doesn't hold your attention. And this is where most good men fall flat. They think vulnerability is intimacy, but women don't want to hear your every thought. They want to feel your emotional strength. And silence is one of the strongest expressions of it. Let me explain something that will flip the switch for you. When a woman starts to like you, she doesn't want constant reassurance. She wants the emotional challenge. She wants to chase. If you flood her with your presence, she loses the thrill. Because women don't bond the way men do. We bond through loyalty. They bond through tension. And when you're always available, when you're constantly engaging, she stops valuing your presence. You go from being a powerful storm to a predictable drizzle, from a leader to a lapdog. And what's worse, she starts to interpret your availability as neediness, even if you're just being kind, even if your heart is in the right place. In her emotional world, he always talks to me translates to, he needs me more than I need him. And once that power imbalance sets in, her respect starts to erode. This is why women will literally say, I love when a man communicates and then ghost the guy who does exactly that. It's not hypocrisy, it's biology. Her emotional attraction is tied to anticipation, to unpredictability, to wondering what's going on in your mind. If you remove that mystery, if you give her emotional certainty every day, you rob her of the very feelings that make her obsessed. Attraction needs space, and silence isn't a lack of love, it's a form of power. A man who can go hours or even days without reaching out shows that he is centered, focused, and not seeking approval. And that's what she really wants. A man who is emotionally self-sufficient. Someone who doesn't need her reactions to validate his identity. That's the man who becomes unforgettable. That's the man who stays on her mind. You want to know why so many women get bored in relationships that start off strong? Because the guy starts talking too much. Not just with words, but with constant energy, constant validation, constant presence. He thinks he's being a good boyfriend. He thinks he's giving her what she wants. But what he's really doing is destroying polarity, killing the vibe. And over time, she starts pulling away. She becomes busy. She takes longer to reply, not because you did something wrong, but because you stopped being mysterious. And in her mind, the excitement faded. The spark died because you gave her all of you before she even asked. And women don't value what they don't have to earn. That's the secret. Most men never learn until it's too late. You have to understand the difference between attention and attraction. Attention is what she can get from anyone. Likes, messages, compliments. It's cheap, it's disposable. But attraction, that's a different beast. It's rare, it's confusing, it's intoxicating. And guess what? It doesn't come from availability, it comes from scarcity. A man who knows his value doesn't flood her with messages. He doesn't try to fill every silence. He leans into the discomfort of space. He lets her sit with her thoughts, replay the last conversation, and miss him. Because that feeling of absence, that ache in the silence, that's where attraction is born. And when she doesn't hear from you, when she starts to wonder what you're doing, who you're with, what you're thinking, that's when her desire grows. Not because you're ignoring her, but because you're not performing for her. There's a reason why the guys who seem emotionally unavailable end up with women obsessing over them. It's not because they're better looking or smarter, it's because they don't talk too much. They don't overshare. They don't explain every move. They stay quiet, composed, unreadable. And that unreadability, that's what lights a woman's mind on fire. She wants to figure him out. She wants to decode his silences. She creates entire stories in her head about what he might be thinking. She assigns depth to his mystery, and in doing so, she falls deeper. The ironic truth is, the less you say, the more meaning she gives to every word you do speak, because you're not trying to win her over, you're letting her wonder if she's even won you. Let me ask you this, when's the last time you felt intense desire for someone who was constantly texting, calling, asking where you are, what you're doing, how you're feeling, every single day? That's not desire, that's pressure, that's clinginess. Now imagine being a woman, flooded with attention from men on a daily basis. Imagine how quickly she gets bored with the guy who follows that same script. But the man who speaks less, who disappears into his purpose, who doesn't answer instantly, who maintains his emotional distance even when he's attracted, that man doesn't just stand out, he becomes unforgettable. He's not available, he's a challenge. And challenge is where attraction thrives. You're not playing hard to get, you simply are hard to get, because your energy isn't free. Now let me flip it on you. If you're always texting her, always calling her, always being the one to initiate conversation, what are you teaching her? You're teaching her that you are the one who needs her, that your emotional state depends on her replies, that you're always available, always checking in, always orbiting her world, and slowly but surely, she starts to see you as safe, predictable, and ultimately disposable. She won't say it out loud. She might even still smile when you text, but the thrill, the hunger, the curiosity, it starts to fade, and before you know it, you're sitting there wondering what happened, why she stopped being as into you, why the connection died. And the answer is simple. You talk too much, you gave too much, you revealed too much. So what's the fix? What does the high-value man do differently? He listens more than he speaks. He observes more than he explains. He lets her do the talking. He lets her fill the silence. He allows space to exist without rushing to cover it. And when he does speak, it matters. Every word carries weight because he's not trying to impress her, he's trying to see her. He's not trying to win her, he's trying to find out if she's even worth the energy. And that energy shift, that's what keeps her hooked. Not because you're being distant on purpose, but because you're not addicted to connection. You don't need the conversation to feel whole, and that right there is what makes her want more of you. Here's the deeper layer to this. Women are emotional detectives. The moment they feel you're trying to win them over with constant words, they start to dig for why. Why is he so available? Why does he keep checking in? Why does he share so much? And their subconscious starts answering that for them. He must not have much going on. He must be insecure. He must be trying to get me to like him. And once they create that narrative, they can't unsee it. You're no longer a confident man. You're a boy seeking approval. And whether or not that's true doesn't matter. In the emotional reality of attraction, perception is reality. And women want to be with a man they feel lucky to have, not one who seems lucky just to be texting them. You see, attraction isn't logical. It's chemical, biological, primal. And in that primal game, silence is seductive. Space is power. Your restraint is what creates the chase, because a woman can only pursue what isn't already chasing her. And when you flip that frame, when you stop being the emotional supplier and start being the emotional standard, she feels it instantly. She sits there staring at her phone, wondering why you haven't messaged. She checks your story, looking for signs. She tells her friends, I don't know, there's something about him. And what she's really saying is, his silence makes me feel something I haven't felt in a long time, uncertainty. And that feeling, when used with strength, makes you unforgettable. But here's the hardest part for men to grasp. You have to be okay with her not knowing how you feel. You have to stop using words to manage her reactions. You have to break the habit of over-explaining, oversharing, over-updating. You're not a customer service agent. You're not her emotional entertainment. You're a man with depth, a man with limits, a man who values his time, his space, his silence. And when she experiences that, she starts to respect you. Not just like you, not just be attracted to you, but actually respect you. Because she sees that your peace isn't up for negotiation, that you won't dance for attention, that you speak with purpose, not with need, and that makes her feel something no pickup line ever could: reverence. Let's get even more honest. If you're afraid of losing her when you stop texting, you were never standing on solid ground. If silence feels risky, it's because your connection was built on noise, on filler, on performance. And this is why so many relationships crash after the honeymoon phase, because the man was trying the whole time, trying to keep her interested, trying to show he cared, trying to impress. But trying is just another form of proving, and proving is for men who don't yet believe they are enough. But when you finally understand that she's either into you or she's not, that she either respects your energy or she doesn't, you stop trying, you stop performing, and ironically, that's when she starts craving you most. Think of the men women obsess over, the ones they talk about years later, the ones they compare every new guy to. It's never the man who texted them 10 times a day. It's the man who felt like a mystery, the man who showed interest but didn't give himself away, the man who had conversations but also long silences, who could go missing for a day or two and come back like nothing happened because he was grounded. That's the man who lives in her head rent-free. Because he didn't flood her senses, he starved her attention. He made her earn his presence, and that kind of restraint, that kind of masculine control, it's what separates the unforgettable men from the forgettable ones, every time. Here's a brutal truth, man. Women only fall deeper when they feel like they're losing something, and silence creates that feeling. Every time you go quiet, not as a tactic, but as a natural expression of your self-sufficiency, you're creating a gap. And in that gap, her mind runs wild. Did I say something wrong? Is he losing interest? Why isn't he chasing me like the others? And instead of pulling away, she starts pulling toward you, because her psychology interprets your silence as value, as power, as a sign that you are not like the rest, that you are not so easily captivated. And the moment she senses that, she either levels up to meet your standard, or she leaves. But either way, you win, because you only want the ones who rise. Let's be honest, most men use talking as a way to fill space they're not comfortable with. They're afraid of silence, afraid of losing interest, afraid that if they don't keep the conversation going, she'll forget them. But here's what real masculine energy understands. Impact is louder than presence. The quality of your energy matters more than the quantity of your communication. You don't need to show up in her inbox every day to stay on her mind. If you felt different, she'll remember you. If your energy was calm, centered, mysterious, she won't forget that. And when she does hear from you again, it means something, because you weren't trying to win her with volume. You were imprinting her with vibe. And don't think for a second that silence makes you weak. That's the frame they want you to buy into, that you're supposed to communicate more, open up, be more emotionally available. But guess what? Most of that advice is designed to turn you into a supplier, into an emotional butler who keeps pouring attention into a woman who hasn't earned it. And you know what happens when you do that? She starts feeling nothing, because there's no challenge, no resistance, no edge. And women need that edge. They crave it, not because they're manipulative, but because it's how they emotionally wake up. A woman can only love a man she respects, and she can only respect a man who's strong enough to be silent when silence is what's needed. Think about the times you felt the most desire for a woman. Was it when she texted you every hour, gave you everything up front, constantly reassured you? Or was it when she was just a little bit out of reach? When you couldn't tell exactly what she was thinking, when there was something unknown about her energy? That's not an accident, that's how human desire works. We crave what we don't fully understand, and women, they've mastered this instinctively. But when a man does it, when a man becomes the mystery, the intrigue, the one who is emotionally unshakable, she doesn't just feel attracted, she becomes hooked, not because of what he says, but because of what he doesn't need to say. And that silence, it haunts her in the best way. You want to know what real power feels like? It's not in being louder, it's in being quieter with strength. It's in saying less, doing less, and still pulling her in like gravity. That's the energy women chase. Not the man who overwhelms her with words, but the man who centers her without even trying. And when you truly embody that, when your stillness speaks louder than any pickup line, she'll start seeing you as different, as rare, as valuable. She'll wonder about you when she's with other men. She'll replay your last message 100 times. She'll search for clues in your silence. Because in a world where everyone is shouting for attention, you stood out by saying nothing, and that's unforgettable. Now here's where most men slip. They confuse detachment with disinterest. They think being silent means acting cold, rude, or emotionally distant. That's not the point. The point is to stay centered in your frame. You're not pushing her away. You're simply not chasing. You're not withholding attention to manipulate her. You're just not throwing it around like confetti. There's a quiet confidence in a man who can sit in stillness, who doesn't need to overexpress just to be seen, who allows the connection to unfold naturally without constantly trying to steer it. And when a woman feels that, when she senses that you are rooted in your own energy and not trying to borrow hers, she feels the rarest thing of all, safe and intrigued at the same time. When she's around you and you're not performing, when you're not trying to impress her, not cracking jokes for approval, not oversharing your feelings just to connect, she begins to see a version of masculinity that is nearly extinct, the kind that isn't shaped by validation, but by purpose. The kind that listens deeply and speaks rarely. The kind that doesn't demand attention, but draws it anyway. Women are emotional sponges. They absorb your vibe, your posture, your calm. And if your calm is louder than words, if your stillness makes her heart beat faster than your stories, then you've reached a level most men never touch. You've become the feeling she can't describe, but also can't stop thinking about. And here's something wild. When you do finally speak, it becomes an event. Every message carries gravity. Every reply feels like a reveal. Because you haven't made yourself so available that your presence becomes background noise. You've maintained your polarity. You've made her feel the absence, so your presence becomes more impactful. That's how women get obsessed. Not because of what you gave, but because of what you withheld. Not in cruelty, but in mastery. You don't say everything. You don't explain everything. You leave blanks in the story and let her imagination run wild. And ironically, her obsession doesn't come from certainty, it comes from wondering what you're holding back. This is how you turn the tables. You don't beg, you don't chase, you don't over-communicate. You build mystery, not by faking it, but by living a life so full that you don't have time to narrate it. You send a message when it matters, not when you're bored. You check in because you want to, not because you're afraid she'll forget you, and she feels the difference. She knows when a man is speaking from fullness, not from fear. When he's texting because he's inspired, not because he's anxious. And that energy, that frequency, it hits different because now you're the one being pursued. You're the one she can't stop thinking about. You're the one she imagines while staring at the ceiling at night. And all you had to do was talk less. So remember this, your silence is not a weakness. It's your superpower. It's the thing that makes her lean in, not pull away. It's the frame that keeps you grounded, even when emotions rise. It's the quiet declaration that says, I don't need to be heard to be felt. And when you own that, when you master the art of saying less, being still, and staying calm in the storm, she won't just be attracted to you. She'll be captivated, because in a world full of noise, you became her peace. And that kind of man, that's the one she never forgets. Even long after the conversations have ended,